There's something about forests that has always drawn me in, a mix of awe and unease that tightens in your chest as dusk falls and the sunlight fades, leaving behind shadows that stretch long and thin between the trees. I've spent countless hours wandering among the pines and oaks, breathing in the damp earth and listening to the whisper of leaves stirred by the wind. But it's that time just before night fully claims the sky when the forest feels alive with a different kind of energy, something older, something watching. That twilight hour, when the air turns crisp and the temperature dips, seems to awaken the woods in a way that's both beautiful and unsettling. It was one of those evenings that my friends and I decided to explore a trail deep in the heart of a forest none of us had ever dared to enter before. We'd heard whispers of strange noises and ghostly figures seen darting between the trees, stories passed around campfires like warnings disguised as tales. The trail wasn't marked on any map we had, and the locals avoided it, speaking of it only with nervous glances and clipped words. But curiosity got the better of us. The four of us, me, Sarah, Mike, and Jenna, packed our gear and set out just as the sun was beginning its slow descent. The path started innocuously enough, a narrow ribbon of dirt winding through dense thickets of underbrush, the scent of pine needles and moss thick in the air. At first, the forest seemed welcoming, almost inviting. Birds chirped their last songs of the day, and the occasional squirrel darted across the trail. But as we pressed deeper, the atmosphere shifted. The usual nighttime sounds fell away, replaced by an unnatural silence that wrapped around us like a shroud. It was the kind of silence that made your skin crawl, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Between the trees, I caught glimpses of shadowy figures, too quick and blurred to be anyone from our group, too still to be animals. Mike noticed them too and tightened his grip on his flashlight, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Did you see that?" he asked, eyes scanning the darkening woods. We all nodded, each of us feeling the prickling sensation of someone, or something, watching from the shadows. As night fully settled, the temperature plummeted, and a thick fog began to creep along the ground like a slow-moving tide. Our flashlights cut through the mist in narrow beams, illuminating twisted branches and the occasional glimpse of unfamiliar shapes. The forest felt oppressive now, as if the trees themselves were closing in, pressing us deeper into a place where the rules of the outside world no longer applied. It was then that Jenna disappeared. One moment she was there, walking beside us, her breath visible in the cold air. The next, she was gone, vanished without a sound or a trace. We called out her name, panic rising in our throats, but all we got back was the echo of our voices swallowed by the trees. Minutes stretched into agonizing moments before she stumbled back onto the trail, pale and trembling, her eyes wide with terror. "I saw something," she gasped, clutching my arm. "It was right there, just past those trees. I thought it was going to take me." None of us wanted to linger after that. We hurried forward, the forest seeming to close ranks around us, the shadows shifting and lengthening. Strange noises echoed, whispers that faded when we stopped to listen, the snap of twigs underfoot that didn't belong to any of us, and a low, guttural sound that seemed to come from the very earth. The trail twisted and turned, leading us deeper into the unknown, and with every step, the stories we'd heard felt less like legends and more like warnings. We couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, hunted even, by something that didn't want us there. That night, surrounded by the silent trees and the cold fog, I realized the forest was far more than a collection of trees and wildlife. It was a living entity, one that held secrets and shadows, and it was only just beginning to reveal its darkest face. After that night in the forest with my friends, I thought I'd had my fill of strange encounters. But the wilderness has a way of pulling you back in, especially when curiosity outweighs caution. A few months later, I found myself alone on a hiking trip, drawn to a dense stretch of forest rumored to harbor an old, abandoned cabin hidden deep within the trees. The locals spoke of it in hushed tones, warning of strange symbols carved into its weathered wood and of eerie happenings that sent even the hardiest hunters packing. I didn't believe in ghosts or curses, but I wanted to see it for myself. The hike in was grueling, the undergrowth thick and tangled, the path barely visible beneath fallen leaves and broken branches. As I pushed through the brush, the forest seemed to grow quieter, the usual chorus of birds and insects fading into an oppressive hush. When I finally stumbled upon the cabin, it was like stepping into another world. The structure leaned precariously, its wood blackened with age and streaked by rain. Strange, cryptic symbols were etched deep into the planks, some resembling twisted runes, others more like frantic scratches made in desperation. The air around the cabin was cold, unnatural, even in the cool shade of the trees. I stepped inside, the floor creaking beneath my boots. The interior was sparse, dust motes dancing in the fading light that filtered through broken windows. But it wasn't the decay that unsettled me, it was the silence. A silence so thick it pressed on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Then came the whispers, soft, unintelligible murmurs that seemed to drift from the walls themselves. I spun around, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, but there was no one there. A flicker of movement caught my eye, a shadow shifting just beyond the doorway. I froze, heart pounding as a sudden chill swept through the room. The air grew icy, breath visible in front of me despite the lack of wind. The whispers grew louder, circling around me like ghosts trapped between the timbers. Every instinct screamed to run, but I was rooted in place, spellbound by the cabin's eerie presence. After what felt like hours, the whispers faded, replaced by a heavy silence. I stumbled outside, gasping for air, the symbols on the cabin's exterior seeming to pulse faintly in the twilight. That night, as I made camp a safe distance away, sleep eluded me. Flickering shadows danced at the edge of my vision, and cold drafts whispered through the trees like invisible fingers tracing my skin. But the forest wasn't done with me yet. Some weeks later, I met a couple, Mark and Lisa, who had been camping near a remote forest pond. Their story was chilling. They'd set up their tent on the banks, surrounded by dense trees and the still water reflecting the moonlight. At first, it was peaceful, too peaceful, they said. Strange footprints appeared around their camp in the morning, prints that didn't match any known animal, oddly shaped and arranged in patterns that defied explanation. As night fell, they heard laughter carried on the wind, soft, childlike giggles that seemed to come from all directions and nowhere at once. The sounds were playful but tinged with something sinister. Mark described a feeling of being watched, a presence that moved just beyond the firelight. Lisa said she caught glimpses of shadowy figures flitting between the trees, never close enough to see clearly but enough to send chills down their spines. They tried to leave, but the forest seemed to close in around them, paths twisting and turning as if the woods themselves were reshaping to keep them trapped. It wasn't until dawn that they finally escaped the pond's eerie grasp, their faces pale and haunted. Their story echoed the unease I'd felt alone in that abandoned cabin, and what my friends and I experienced on that unmarked trail. The forest was not just a backdrop of trees and wildlife, it was a realm where the natural and supernatural intertwined, where the boundary between reality and nightmare blurred. Then there was the family who had planned a simple weekend getaway, hoping to reconnect away from the noise of the city. They chose a cabin nestled near a dense thicket, surrounded by towering pines and the distant murmur of a creek. Their first day was idyllic, hikes through sun-dappled clearings, laughter around the campfire, stories told beneath a canopy of stars. But as night fell, the atmosphere shifted. They noticed a shadowy figure lurking just beyond the tree line, watching silently, its presence felt more than seen. The figure never approached, but its gaze was heavy, suffocating. The family tried to ignore it, convincing themselves it was a trick of the light or a wild animal curious about their fire. But the feeling of being stalked grew with each passing hour. On the second night, the figure seemed to move closer, its shape more distinct, the darkness around it swirling unnaturally. The family's youngest son woke screaming, claiming the shadow whispered his name. Panic set in, and before dawn, they fled, leaving behind their belongings and memories tainted by fear. Each of these stories, from the abandoned cabin to the pond and the family's terror, shared threads of the inexplicable, whispers in the dark, chilling laughter, shadowy watchers. They painted a picture of a forest alive with unseen forces, a place where reality bent and twisted, and where those who entered risked becoming part of its growing legend. The woods, I realized, were more than trees and trails. They were a labyrinth of fear and mystery, a place where the boundary between the known and the unknown dissolved into shadow. And the deeper you ventured, the more the forest revealed its true nature, a living, breathing entity that could ensnare you in its silent, haunting embrace. Each time I reflect on those accounts, the trail my friends dared to follow, the abandoned cabin shrouded in whispers, the couple haunted by laughter, and the family stalked by shadows, I'm struck by how differently the people responded to the forest's creeping terror. Some fled at the first sign of danger, instincts honed by millennia of survival kicking in. Others hesitated, caught between disbelief and the gnawing fear that what they faced was real. But no matter the reaction, all were marked by it, their lives indelibly changed by encounters that defied explanation. I remember Mike's trembling voice when he told me how, after we escaped that night on the trail, he couldn't sleep for weeks. Every creak, every distant rustle in his apartment sent him into a panic. Sarah avoided the woods altogether for months, her laughter gone, replaced by a solemn caution. Jenna, the one who disappeared briefly among those trees, said the experience haunted her dreams, shadows reaching out from the darkness, calling her name in voices that weren't quite human. The couple by the pond, Mark and Lisa, found themselves unable to enjoy quiet nights without the memory of that eerie laughter echoing in their minds. They refused to camp near water again, their peace shattered by the unknown presence they'd felt but never saw clearly. And the family who fled the shadowy figure carried scars that didn't show on their skin, nightmares, a deep-seated wariness of the forest, and a reluctance to speak of what they'd seen. These stories reveal something profound about the forest itself. It is a place of stark duality, breathtakingly beautiful by day, cloaked in tranquil light that filters through green leaves. Yet beneath that serene exterior lurks a darker realm, where silence can be more terrifying than any noise, and where unseen eyes watch from the shadows. The forest is not merely a setting for adventure, it is a living, breathing entity with moods and secrets, capable of entrancing and tormenting those who venture too far. The psychological aftermath of these encounters lingers long after the physical threat has passed. The primal instinct to survive gives way to a deeper struggle, grappling with the unknown, making sense of experiences that defy logic. It's a battle fought in sleepless nights and sudden shivers down the spine, in the hesitation before stepping onto a forest path and the unease that settles in the chest when alone among the trees. In my own life, these events instilled a newfound respect for the wilderness. No longer did I see the forest as just a backdrop for hikes or camping trips. I came to understand it as a realm where caution and reverence are not just advisable, they are essential. The woods hold stories that refuse to be forgotten, warnings that echo through the rustling leaves, and presences that may never fully reveal themselves. I often find myself pondering my own relationship with the wild. How much do we truly know about the spaces we call natural? How many mysteries lie just beyond the edge of our vision, waiting in the twilight? These questions remind me that adventure and awe walk hand in hand with fear and respect. To step into the forest is to enter a world where both beauty and terror coexist, where what lurks in the shadows might be watching, waiting, or even inviting us deeper. And so, as the sun dips and the forest exhales its breath of cool air and lengthening shadows, I carry these stories with me. Each one a whisper from the woods, a reminder that nature's silence can be as chilling as its sound, and that sometimes, the greatest mysteries lie not in the stars above, but in the darkened depths beneath the canopy.